Hello, my name is Farah and I'm a graduate student, and today I'm going to present you the following article: Influencer Marketing on Instagram, a sequential model of storytelling content and audience engagement via relatability and trust. I can say with certainty that every one of our classmates has Instagram, or at least is fully familiar with the app. Even our professor seems to have fallen for the charm through he has his Instagram page. The same way that it's not surprising that each one of us has an Instagram account, brands, small or big, personal or global businesses are also active users and aware of the advertising benefits of using social media platforms. A recent but largely spread way to advertise on social media is by reaching specific targets via influencer brand and community. Influencers and features such as Instagram stories has opened the possibility of both format but also content advertising. This research aims to show how storytelling content made by influencers on Instagram is an effectiveness marketing tool due to trust and relatability built with the audience. As of July 2022, it is estimated that Instagram has around 1.4 billion users around the world, with the average user time spent a day to be around 1 hour. Moreover, 95 million pictures and posts are uploaded every day on the app. As of January 2019, Instagram reported that 500 million daily active story users worldwide. And also, according to recent report, Instagram ad revenues just in the US are expected to hit 33.3 billion in 2022. The Insta features consist of uploading content visibility for only 24 hours and has allowed influencers to more easily interact with their audiences. As previous studies have already showed, that video ads present on social media influence the consumer attitude, and Instagram stories have higher ad effectiveness compared to traditional posts. So this study proposed that Instagram users may have increased motivation to process ephemeral content, such as storytelling content that allows them to interact with the audience freely, resulting with more engagement because of trust and relatability. To demonstrate the impact of storytelling content creating by influencers on Instagram, the study explicitly focused on the million market and followed the following structure. First, literature review, then data collection, conclusion, and then discussion. So, literature review. What is a social media influencer? A social media influencer are those people who have built a handsome social network of people following them on their social media account. They are seen as trusted taste makers and are approached by different brands to endorse their product. The emergence of influencer marketing. Influencer marketing works the same way as receiving a recommendation of a product from a friend or a family member. Of course, online reviews about the product or user expression was already a sustainable impact in decision making, but the notable difference is that with influencer, what is called electronic word of mouth review, or the act of sharing personal review on a product, doesn't come from a random user with an anonymous ID, but comes from a person that we feel like we know. They share their personal routine, exposing items they purchase and using their influence to impact their audience and therefore become influencers. Regarding the feature stories on Instagram, what is even more interesting with the feature, on top of what we already covered previously, is that it offers a great range of creativity for the story maker, but also various interaction features for the viewer. The easiness of use on both way and allowing influencers to freely share their personal life has made them seem more approachable and more importantly relatable. To explain storytelling, I found this definition that I think is interesting. Storytelling is the interactive art of using words and action to reveal the elements and image of a story while encouraging the listener imagination, following a structure of beginning, middle, and ending plot. It is certainly not a coincidence that the Instagram feature launched in 2016 is called Stories, as storytelling was shown to be a more effective strategy in advertisement compared to non-narrative ads, it is natural that the Instagram feature became a marketing tool. Moreover, previous research also covers that the content shown in a story form is pleasurable for the audience because they enjoy it both as a protagonist and as the audience, which explain why user reaction to video storytelling content is more engaging than static posts. Which leads us to the next point. Audience engagement and storytelling content. The phenomenon of audience engagement, defined by emotional, cognitive, and affective response to the media content, can result in a higher interaction with the content or more content consumption. The proposed theory of audience engagement states that a user engagement is multidimensional with emotional and behavioral dimensions. Moreover, there is also a degree of involvement from the user, as some may absorb the story, or some may interact with it, or even some may participate in it. The challenge holds in keeping consumer attention in a world where users are also avoiding ads with features that allows them to skip it, like we can see often on YouTube ads, for example, but also with users who are more skeptical towards online content due to the amount of, for example, fake news or what we are also calling staged videos. The researchers propose that storytelling content will likely help the audience engage with the brief content by hypothesizing the following. So, hypothesis 1. Storytelling content has a positive influence on audience engagement. Similar as when we watch a movie or read a book and identify with the character, a similar phenomenon has partaken in social marketing. Relatability is a situation when an ordinary person might see themselves reflected. As influencers share various sides of their life and personas, users, similarly to when watching a fictional character, are engaged by also identifying. But with social media, there is an additional dimension that makes it relatable and not just identifiable. To explain it, I think that we can see identification as a one-sided relationship. I identify to the character, but relatability is like a shared relationship. The user relates to the influencer or the content, but to do that, the influencer or the content needs to be relatable to its audience. The research defines that the content is considered relatable if easily understood and jargon-free. But I would like to add that there is maybe something more in my opinion. Relatability is also why we distinguish influencers from celebrity, despite the fact that sometimes they have the same number of notoriety and fans, fans being similar. So celebrity don't tend to expose their personal life or their lifestyle, and they seem by doing so unreachable and maybe as living as their own world by the audience. But influencers build their brand around sharing. Therefore, the audience has possible opportunities to relate to the influencer. Relatability is seeing ourselves as living in the same world despite differences, which explains why, and I'm quoting the paper, through storytelling, relationships are built between the participants. The audience not just see the story, but interprets it and according to their prior knowledge, personality, and demographic. Therefore, it is not surprising that we identify relatability as a phenomenon that is an antecedent of storytelling content. Which leads to hypothesis number 2, storytelling content has a positive impact on relatability, and hypothesis number 3, relatability plays a mediation role between storytelling content and audience engagement. The latest hypothesis is that relatability is the mediator between storytelling content and audience engagement. Previous studies show that sharing one's experience affects people's belief, attitude, and behavior, and describe it as a form of persuasion. Story becomes shared source of knowledge and informations. Moreover, past studies suggest that audience think in a narrative way rather than in an argumentative way, and which make me think that that's maybe why we call storytelling storytelling applied to advertisement narrative ads. It is believed in previous research, and I quote, that it can be argued that execution style of content in the form of a story may bring out more favorable change in the attitude of the audience, leading to the conclusion that storytelling content creates a connection between the source and the listener, which brings us to hypothesis number 4. Reliability is positively associated with trust. Hypothesis number 5. Trust mediates between storytelling content and audience engagement. And hypothesis number 6, trust is positively associated with audience engagement. The paper defined trust as general expectation and belief that most others have warm intention and can be relied upon. We already covered how influencers give a sense of relatability, but influencers need to build a sense of trust as well. The audience can be influenced as long as first trust the content they're exposed to. We refer to electronic word of mouth and compare recommendation from influencer to one of a friend or a family member, also because there is similarity in a sense of trust that the influencer advertise product in a trustworthy way and as if it was recommended by someone who is believed and trusted and respected in the community. By trying products on themselves and showing live and general reaction, but also by interacting and nourishing the relationship with the audience, influencers have reached a level of trustworthiness that brands are craving for. Studies have found that if consumers do not find trustworthy content in an online store, they will not consider it. Therefore, the study concludes that trust is essential in relations as it improves efficiency, increases flexibility, and helps long-term relationship between the two parties. And based on the above theoretical grounding, it is suggested that feeling related to the influencer will build more trust between the influencer and its audience. And as prior studies suggested, that consumer engagement helps build a relationship of trust and commitment between the seller and the buyer, there will be more consumer or audience engagement if there is a higher attachment. Thus, based on this, it is anticipated that with trust between two parties, the relationship between storytelling content and audience engagement is mediated. Finally, when it comes to online communities and user experience, building trust is even more complex as there is proliferation of fake ads, schemes, making audience skeptical. As influencers are building one-on-one feeling type of relationship, based on social media interaction, but also depends on their followers in a much more give and take relationship level than brands, they seem to comfortably overcome skepticism over time compared to brands. Which brings us to our final hypothesis. Hypothesis number 7, relatability and trust mediates between storytelling content and consumer engagement. We can see with the following picture how the 7 hypotheses relate to each other. And which will bring us to our second part, the data collection. Variable and concept definition. So the dependent variable in the study is audience engagement, with independent variable being storytelling content. The both are defined as first, the extent to which the audience emotional, cognitive, or affective experience with the media content, and storytelling content is defined as the fact conveyed by emotion that makes people more engaged and want to take action and change their surroundings. Or also can be referred to a beginning, a middle, and an ending plot, like we saw earlier. The mediators in the studies are relatability and trust. Relatability links the independent variable, storytelling content, with the dependent variable, audience engagement. Relatability is defined as the extent to which a person feels that one is connected to others, has caring relationship, and belongs to a community. Trust is the second mediator in our sequential model, which refers to a general expectation and belief that most others have warm intention towards us and can also be relied upon. This study has conducted to determine the impact of independent variable on the dependent variable, so the storytelling context as X and audience engagement as Y. Variability mediator 1, which is with relativity mediator being as mediator 1 and trust being as mediator 2. As for the participant and procedure, the procedure is made with as a form of a questionnaire with 5-point Likert scale type of answers, going from 5 as strongly agree to 1 as strongly disagree. This type of questionnaire was chosen due to the collection data, which is more easy compared to open type of answer. The questionnaires were in English and all questions were closed questions. The first section comprised personal information, including age, education, and gender. The second section contained 3 items of storytelling content. The third section considered 3 items related to relatability and also included 4 items. Furthermore, the last section covered 3 items on audience engagement. As for the participants, there were 300 million Instagram users born after 1980 who use Instagram daily and were recruited via direct links. Storytelling, relatability, and trust, as well as audience engagement, were all measured using the 5-point Likert scale measurement, going with, again, 5 as strongly agree and 1 as strongly disagree. And use questions such as the following example. The story content caught my attention. I feel like I know the influencer well. I trust the influencer message more than one coming directly from a brand, or when interacting with the content, it is difficult to detach myself. As for the control variable included 1, gender, with female as 1, male as 2, education level going from 0 to PhD level, with intermediate level, baccalaureate level, and master's, and age going from 15 to 40 years old. And this is because since the questionnaire were to be filled by the millennials, the study had to ensure that the age was controlled. It was also important to keep gender as a control variable because the study wanted to know if the response of male were different from the female. Lastly, collecting education data was important as education level can exhibit different attitudes and behaviors. As for the result, descriptive analysis of participant characteristics, in the end, there were only 2,073 millennial Instagram users that participate in the survey. And this is due because 27 of the response had missing data and therefore were taken out of the study. The finding demonstrated that the majority of the respondents were the majority of the respondents were females with a percentage of 90.1%. In contrast, approximately 1 of 8 of the participants were males. Also, about 49% of them were aged between 21 to 25, and only 13% of the participants were aged between 15 and 20. So lastly, it leaves 70% for 26 and 30 and 13% for 31 to 34. The majority of the participants were graduate students. The finding shows that all the studied variables had a minimum range of responses between 1.0 to 1.6, whereas the maximum value is 5. Here are the range for each categories. Storytelling content had a mean of 3.68, implying that Instagram users do find storytelling content engaging. Relatability items resulted in a mean of 3.3, proposing that the study participants feel more relatable with the content and eventually gain trust and become more engaged. Trust items product mean were 3.2, which shows that users trust the storytelling content and become engaged with the content shown. Finally, audience engagement items reported to be with a mean of 3.4, exhibiting that users become invested due to the story content procedure. As for the measurement validation, to check internal consistency and relatability between items of each construct, the study conducted a Cambridge alpha values. An alpha value is considered very good if it reaches between 0.8, whereas at 0.7 is considered adequate. The results have shown that all variables have internal consistency between 71% to 85%, hence there is no relatability issue with the data. The study conducts further testing related to regarding to correlation, metrics such as exploratory and confirmatory factor analysis and hypothesis testing to ensure the validity of the collected data that I will invite you to further explore in if you wish. So this leads us to the conclusion. As social media progress, it has greatly influenced our behaviors as consumers and how we purchase products. Now we don't only look for reviews, but seek out influence from Instagram, leading to both the app and more broadly advertisement itself to evolve and create features and stories to keep with the trends. The study's main objective was to determine the impact of storytelling content on audience engagement, and it was anticipated that the relatability and trust could play a role in influencing our dependent and independent variable, which leads to 7 main findings. As you can see on the slide, we have at first in yellow the starting hypothesis and after in blue the findings after the data collection. So as for hypothesis number 1, we come to the conclusion that anything shared in the form of a story simplifies the complexity of the content, resulting in more engaged audience. Hypothesis number 2, that millennials feels relatable when they see storytelling content. Number 3, relatability mediates the relationship between storytelling content and audience engagement. Number 4, millennials are prone to value someone else's opinion who is more credible. It was found that this generation pushes their boundary to seek a connection with someone. So the results align with the previous finding, liking relatability and trust positively. Moreover, hypothesis number 5, trust mediates the relationship between story content and audience engagement. Number 6, our current study found a positive influence of trust on audience engagement. The results suggest that if there is a relationship of trust between the influencer and the Instagram user, millennials in this case, the audience will be more engaged in the content. And finally, indirect impact of storytelling content on audience engagement through relatability and trust exists. Storytelling content is more relatable and develop trust between the influencer and the follower, resulting in more audience engagement. There is some limitations to this paper. The research does not control a specific type of storytelling content on Instagram, which means that we don't know if there is a difference in the type of storytelling content with which audience will engage more than with another. Also, I think that more platforms could help corroborate the hypothesis in different circumstances. I personally think that it would have been interesting in today's age that to see how the same correlation happened on apps such as TikTok. And finally, more detailed research can be conducted in Instagram user profile characteristics. In this particular study, the only characteristics when choosing the Instagram user that fulfilled the questionnaire was gender, educational background, and age, which by providing a more wide profile of Instagram users with more characteristics might help advertisers examine the demographic factors presented in the study and other personal factors. To conclude, according to the paper Reaching Point, influencers and brands should make sure that the information content they are making for the consumers are delivered in the form of a story, as it helps millennials relate to the content and allows the influencers and brands to build a trust relationship which results in a higher audience engagement. In the research, audience engagement has been seen from a different dimension. This suggests that the strong positive association between storytelling content and audience engagement through measures such as relatability and trust can positively change influencer marketing. To the best of the knowledge of the paper, the current study is the first one of the kind that mention relationship empirically. Finally, I would like to conclude with a discussion topic. After seeing what lies behind the influence of influencers on their audience, I'm curious, have any of you ever purchased an item after it was recommended by an influencer? Also, I think that nowadays, like I previously mentioned, not only influencers but also Random users are starting to develop influence with recommendation videos going viral, especially with the rising platform TikTok. I came across some news article with titles such as 15 products that went viral on TikTok that you should buy, something like that. That shows that not only influencers and brand are holding the key to influence and recommendation product, but also now maybe users have the power to go viral while recommending a product. I think that the rise of creative content during COVID and features such as Insta Reels and also as platforms such as TikTok would be interesting to see what are the mediators that make people be influenced by viral product review videos. So just let me know what you think in the comments. Thank you very much. That was my presentation.